Hey, Angie from Block 81 here. Today I'm going to have some tips for you on how to work with a designer. The client-designer relationship can be a fantastic one, but it can also fall apart really fast. And that could be for any number of reasons. It's not always the client's fault, and it's not always the designer's fault. So the tips I'm going to go over with you today will help you really get the most out of that client-designer relationship. Alright, so tip number one. First, you got to figure out if you even need a designer in the first place. You see, sometimes what you really need is someone who's good at a piece of software. That may be Illustrator, Photoshop, InDesign, Sketch, whatever it may be. But a designer is more than just someone who's good at software. Now, you could hire a designer, but you're probably going to pay a higher rate, whereas you could hire just someone who's very good at a piece of software. But a designer is someone who's good at problem solving. A good designer will create a solution for your business problem, whether that be driving new leads to your website, converting sales, or something similar. So before you even go down the road of hiring a designer, figure out if that's really what you need in the first place. Tip number two, be open to solutions. So now that we know that a designer is a problem solver, you need to be open to their solutions. Designers are professionals. More specifically, they're taught to create things to achieve goals. And those goals are your business goals, generally speaking. Sure, it probably needs to look fantastic, and a designer is going to help you with that. But design for design's sake is just art and isn't going to necessarily get you any closer to your goals. A good designer, though, will take you there so long as you're open to their solutions. And of course, as long as they're able to justify and explain their decisions behind any of their design choices. Tip number three, know what you want, but from a high level. Here's the thing, it's important to know what you want, but you don't need to worry about all the details of it. In fact, it's totally okay if you don't have all the details. It's often better that you don't. As I've mentioned a couple times already, a designer is a problem solver. And that designer will see things from a different, most likely objective point of view. Regardless, it's your designer that will help you iron things out because they should be asking you questions to understand your business and your goals and everything in between. If they're not asking you questions, then they're already failing you. So it's important to make sure that they are asking you questions though, so that they're really understanding what it is that you're all about. Your feedback is critical to the design process. Critique is good, it's very good, but try to keep your personal preferences out of it. The reasoning is simple. Your desire to have falling snowflakes on your page when it's winter may not necessarily line up with the goals for your site or your business. In other words, it's not necessarily going to help anything other than just be kind of gimmicky, and people can see right through that. And no matter what the element or layout that is up for discussion is, the changes and tweaks really should line up with all of your project goals and business goals. Similarly, if there's something that you don't like, that's totally fine. It's totally fine. But you need to be able to explain why. Just like the designer is explaining their justification for a design decision, you should be able to explain why you don't like something. Okay, sure, sometimes there's going to be times when you can't quite put your finger on it, but even if you can try and explain your uncomfortableness, if you will, with a particular design decision, even in broad strokes, that's going to help your designer come up with a different solution. Tip number five, meet your deadlines. I hate to break it to you, but as a design client, you're going to have deadlines. Your designer is going to ask you for feedback, and they're going to ask for content, images, text, video, what have you. It's important that you meet deadlines for those items. If you don't, you're delaying the project. You're making it harder for your designer to do their job properly. You see, you've hired them to create and deliver a particular type of project, right? And you've probably asked them to do it by a certain date. So it's important that you be able to do the same thing from your end. Tip number six, don't expect to add stuff to the scope without consequences. As the design process goes on, it's totally normal and happens often that you get excited about how it's going, and you want to add new stuff. You want to add a new feature, whatever it may be. And honestly, that's okay. It's totally okay. But don't expect to just simply ask for something and either not get pushback or get a note about it costing more money or requiring more time. A good designer is going to evaluate what it is you're asking for and tell you if it's going to work or not, and why or why not, and maybe even help you come up with a different solution. And if the new feature that you're asking for wasn't in the original project scope, then don't be surprised when they do tell you that it requires more time and or more money. Generally, both go hand in hand. It's just part of the design process, so don't be surprised when that happens. All right, so those are my tips for working with a designer. If you have any questions or comments, drop it in the comments section below. If you did get something out of it, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. I will see you next time.